with 60 Minutes. And the interview speaks for itself that when he was in Eastern Europe as a young man, he changed his name, took a fake name, and I wouldn't blame any Jew in Europe for doing that. What I do blame him for is that he then helped the Nazis go around and take people's possessions and then load them up to be taken away. And he told 60 Minutes and others that, well, if he didn't do it, somebody else would have, so he doesn't feel guilty. This is a serious sociopath who has all these big lobbying arms. Just 2 weeks ago, Politico got the internal documents from one of George Soros's admitted front groups and Media Matters, and they said, we are going to destroy and sabotage the alternative media, starting with Fox News and talk radio and, quote, other conservative sites. And that means anybody that doesn't go along with their program. And if you read their site on an almost daily basis, they savage me and attack me, and it's very, very scary to have a guy who isn't even American-born, who was a Nazi collaborator on record here in America, trying to demonize myself and others and trying to shut us up and going after people's sponsors. It is very, very scary, but we have to stand up against this bully or the Republic will fall. I don't think George Soros is the heart of the New World Order, but he is one of their very dangerous generals out on the front line. But if you look at Cass Sunstein, who's an acolyte of George Soros, and of course Soros is one of the biggest contributors and masterminds behind President Barack Obama, Cass Sunstein wrote public papers saying, if you don't believe in man-made global warming, you should be arrested. He said, but if we can't start arresting 9/11 truthers and people that don't believe in man-made global warming, were two examples. He also gave a bizarre example and said, if you believe that 30 minutes of sunshine is good for you, that's a conspiracy theory. I mean, these guys want to be God. He said you should be arrested for that. But he said, bare minimum, we should tax and regulate these radio hosts and these websites, basically any media that they don't totally agree with, or any media that allows different guests to be on or different ideas. We were talking about censorship earlier. Anything that isn't part of kind of a mainline establishment view, they want to shut it down. And that's why I totally agree with Governor Ventura when he thanked you, George, and that's why I always thank you. It's not an exercise in groveling. It's an exercise in thankfulness and being appreciative. Just like every day when I look at my two daughters and my son and they're healthy and happy, I literally almost cry and thank the Creator that I've been blessed when other families have children with cancer, diseases. I also thank the Creator for people like you and other venues of true free speech, because it took courage to even ask that question. You're a very savvy, smart guy. You know what he does to people. I recognize your courage. And like Ventura said at the end of the last hour, people, you better appreciate venues like Coast to Coast AM and George Norrie and the other weekend hosts. You had better appreciate Infowars.com and the films I've made that are free online, like The Obama Deception, Fall of the Republic, Endgame. Folks, you better realize that they're openly in the news again today. Internet kill switch bill won't die, but then when you read deeper, they've already got the kill switch in place. This is happening. The TSA is really sticking their hands down men, women, and children's pants. They really are putting us in radiation bakers. The federal government, and later I want to go over some of these numbers if you have time, George. The federal government first said there wasn't any radiation from Fukushima. The Japanese government said the same thing. Now, a month and a day into this tragedy, they now admit it's as bad as Chernobyl or worse. It is only getting worse, and the radiation that comes over in, quote, low levels continues to build up day after day as it stacks up. And I actually have the printouts here, George, from the EPA. They've put out a new public advisory that they are now raising. Listen to this, folks. And only alternative media would cover this. No mainstream media has covered this except for a few California newspapers, God bless them, like the San Francisco Chronicle. But it's right there on the EPA's own website. The new standards say that they will allow a 1,000-fold increase for exposure to strontium-90. That's exactly what's coming over here. a 3,000 to 100,000 fold hike for exposure to iodine 131. That's what's in the milk in 17 states, just where they've tested. And almost a 25,000 rise for exposure for radioactive nickel 63. Those are all the lighter isotopes, but still very radioactive and deadly, that are showing up. And get this, in the 17 states where it's been found in the milk and produce and water, including 181 times safe levels of radioactive iodine at the University of Berkeley at the State Research Facility, the federal government, now listen to me, folks, is on record a month into this, will not release any of not just their background radiation levels, but the actual isotope meters, because a regular Geiger counter doesn't even pick that up. It takes very expensive devices, very complex devices that our submarines and aircraft and nuclear bases all have. Europe is reporting a lot higher levels of radiation, so the EU is raising what they say is safe. So basically, they're waving a magic wand and saying, we're going to, because radiation levels are going up as this thing continues to have multiple meltdowns and spew uranium, plutonium, you name it, into the air, they're just waving a magic wand and saying, we're saying it's okay for you. Okay, radiation levels are higher. We're not going to release our federal numbers. We're going to make a few universities and states release it. The mainstream media is going to basically cover up this fact and not amplify this key information as a true public service.
And is that omission of ignorance, of omission of, deliberation? Do they really want to just deliberately omit this stuff?
They want to deliberately omit it, and I'm so glad that you just brought that up, George, because there's a whole other side to this. The radioactive, well, I mean, it just came out yesterday that in Simi Valley, back in the 50s.
Not too far from the studio in Los Angeles, as a matter of fact.
And that ABC News report admits that for decades, the biggest meltdown in history up until Chernobyl, and over 200 times worse than 3 Mile Island, a total meltdown at a facility there in Southern California was kept secret. Now it's in ABC News. So there's your proof right there. Simi Valley has a meltdown in the 50s. In fact, I can pull the article up. Anybody can. Just type in Simi Valley meltdown, and you'll get ABC News and Associated Press. It took them decades to even begin to tell the public. But let me expand on that. Fukushima, Chernobyl, they're not the only sources. It is confirmed, and I actually have the documents here. We have time to go over them. It is confirmed. I want listeners to hear this. This is not hyperbole. That in all 50 states, in over 70% of the cities and towns, since the 1950s, what is called sodium fluoride is put in the water, and just type fluoride cancer in, 7-time increase in bone cancer in men that drink fluoride, 3-time increase in women. Men are more susceptible, but that's a side issue. Right around 71%, to be accurate, of counties, cities, municipal water supplies have it added, and it is the main source is mined out of limestone deposits all over North America, but we also buy a lot of it from China. But the limestone deposits where they're mining are generally at current uranium mining facilities because they find uranium and other radioactive isotopes, strontium and other things, in the limestone that they get the phosphates for. That's the main ingredient in crop fertilizer. But if they put it on the crops, it'll kill them. And so they take it, and on average it has about 150 chemicals in it. It's authorized by the EPA to have over 350. But guess what? It turned out, and this broke 3 months ago in Texas, guess what's in the fluoride powder? Uranium and other radioactive isotopes. And here are the news headlines. KENS 5 San Antonio. Contaminated water in major Texas city has radioactive elements. Here's another one. A raw story. Revealed Texas officials covered up dangerously radioactive tap water for years. Same headline, Dallas Morning News. Then I did more research on this. Turns out that there are similar cover-ups in states all over the U.S., and in Europe. And so what happened is the feds came into the state of Texas several decades ago when their own state water officials were testing it, saying we're finding in some cases 10 times, 20 times, over 100 times normal levels of uranium and other isotopes in the water. And the feds said to the state, people who say they can't suppress this stuff, they did for over 20 years, they said cover it up. So the news is reporting that this is in our water and it's being added and that there was a cover-up, but they don't go the step further that it's public research, because they're all in the news going, we don't know why it's in every major town. We don't know why it's in all the major water. We don't know why it's in all these states when it's not naturally in the water table or in the reservoir. It's because they're adding radioactive isotopes to the water. And I interviewed Dr. Busby of England. He's the top BBC advisor, also advises the EU. He said many of his colleagues believe that they're doing this on purpose because nothing reduces fertility in men and women like radioactive isotopes, namely uranium, and the sperm count in the U.S., but also in every other, they even have city-by-city studies in England. Every city that has this being added to the water has higher sperm count drops than nearby areas that aren't, and that's why, on average, the West has an 87% sperm count reduction. Folks, of course, they've got Ann Coulter out saying the Japanese ought to be thankful for the radiation. They're not going to get cancer. Of course, they've got the big globalist George Monbiot out saying, he loves nuclear now that the plant blew up. These are bizarre statements, but they're making them because, ladies and gentlemen, it is the policy of the eugenicist population reducers. You think this stuff starts and stops with vaccines or GMO? They are putting, knowingly, radioactive isotopes in every major fluoridated water supply, and fluoride is only the cover name. There's lead, mercury, arsenic, and hundreds of other things being added as well, but all of that is a cover for the radium, the strontium, the uranium. You heard it here, folks, and it's hiding in plain view. They are putting radiation in your water.
What a great way for population control, Alex, huh?
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm begging you, if you love your family, I'm begging you. Now, this isn't a game. This isn't entertainment. This isn't a joke. This is real. I know a lot of you are probably shocked by this information. If you'll just search Texas covered up radiation in water or in tap water, you will literally get hundreds of Texas TV, radio, and newspapers. And when you read the articles, you've got to read for like an hour just to find any news that got it right and said, oh, it's the fluoride mined out of phosphate. Because the first thing you'd ask is not just why did they cover it up, that's admitted, or why in some cases is it over 100 times safe levels. The bigger question is, how is it getting there?
Yes, and why?
Exactly.
And why. Stay with us. Alex Jones, next with your phone calls on Coast to Coast AM.